Aloha mai kako from Kahilu Theater in Waimea on the island of Hawaiʻi. You're listening to the Hawai'i Radio Hour. I'm Mileka Lincoln, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Kobe Akamu Moser.
Aloha mai kako. On the program today, we're going to be looking at the way changes in Washington, D.C. have impacted science here in Hawaii.
Our musical performance this week features Ninamarie Bell from her performance at Kahilu.
And with all the difficult news coming out of Washington, D.C., we'll finish with a happy story from Boots Lupenui about Hawaiians sharing music in America's capital city.
News, ike kupuna, mele, mo'olelo, and more.
All on today's episode of Hawai'i Radio Hour from Kahilu.
Aloha from Kahilu Theater in Waimea. I'm Mileka Lincoln, and I'm here with my co-host, Kobe Akamu Moser.
We are so glad to have you listening to us today, and it is summer.
Officially summer.
It really feels like it, too.
I gotta tell you, summer takes on a completely different meaning, whether you are a child between, I will even say, a young adult under the age of, say, 25.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have to wrangle young adults at any point from the age of 0 to 25.
It
doesn't
doesn't
have
difference.
that taste of freedom at point like it used to. It gets a little chaotic.
It is so chaotic. I remember summers growing up being just sleeping
Carefree.
in. We're just going to go to the beach all day.
Yeah.
But as a parent, there's no routine. There's no
So true.
There's no plan. There's lots of things going on. There's trips, there's concerts, there's all these things that you need to plan for your kids. But it's great. Are you traveling anywhere this summer?
We don't have any big plans, but we
Oh,
do
no.
have such firm, just steady appreciation and aloha for every single person who serves in some way, shape, or form of capacity in education.
Absolutely.
Because we rely on them quite a bit, I would say.
And we miss
through June.
And we miss you so much.
We miss you. We love you. Hurry home. The children, they don't know that they miss you, but they do. Please come back to us. No, it's no big plans for us. But are you guys going anywhere for the summer?
We're going all over the place.
Oh,
We're
nice.
going to Alaska. It's our favorite family tradition that we started. My husband went to college in Anchorage and so has kept his friendships. And so we
Okay.
go every summer to fish and bring back boxes of fresh salmon
I love
and
that.
hopefully halibut. And
Yeah.
the girls love it too. And man, summers in Alaska it's amazing. Like the sun doesn't even go down and you don't even get tired.
And then it's just more hours of the day that you have to fill with activity. You guys are courageous. Let me tell you, I want to do the opposite. I want to go somewhere where it's like, oh, dark at 3? Shucks. Time for bed. All right, folks. Wind it down. Mama got to go to bed too.
That sounds amazing too, actually.
Well, however you celebrate your summer, we certainly hope that everyone has safe, joyful trips, just building beautiful memories with their families.
Absolutely.
And don't forget to build more memories with us. You're listening to Hawai'i Radio Hour, and we'll be back from Kahilu right after this quick message. The Hawai'i Radio Hour has been made possible with the incredibly generous kāko'o of the Richard Smart Fund.
The Richard Smart Fund supports healthcare, education, and charities in the Waimea area on Hawaii Island.
To learn more, please visit hawaiicommunityfoundation.org. Aloha kako. Welcome back to Hawai'i Radio Hour.
A couple of episodes ago, we talked about the impacts of decisions being made in Washington, D.C. and how they're affecting us here in Hawaii.
And those changes keep on coming, and decisions on the table that haven't been made yet are causing folks everywhere to reassess and brace themselves for potential updates. Regardless, change is happening.
On today's episode, we're going to be looking at another area that's been greatly impacted, and that's the field of science. Of course, one of the biggest impacts was the termination of funding for the TMT project on Mauna Kea.
The National Science Foundation withdrew financial support for the 30-meter telescope in plans submitted as part of the Trump administration's funding requests for fiscal year 2026. The NSF's funding was cut by more than half in the congressional budget proposal. As a result, the foundation is dropping its financing of TMT.
Cuts in funding are going to affect astronomy here in Hawaii beyond TMT. We at our Hawaii Storytelling Fellow, Mahealani DuPont, take a closer look.
Aloha, Mahea. You sat down with Rich Matsuda, the director of the Keck Observatory, to talk about the changes being felt in science right here in Hawaii.
Aloha. Yes, I did. We talked about pretty significant cuts in federal funding supporting science. And hearing the breakdowns of how those budgets were previously being distributed really painted a clear picture of how grave these disruptions will be. I'll have Rich introduce himself and explain more.
Hey, my name is Rich Matsuda. I'm the director of the WM Keck Observatory, and we're sitting in my office in beautiful Waimea right now. Let me start first from being a kama'aina and thinking about the impact to science more broadly and how it affects Hawaii. First, what we are concerned about is the budget that's going to be coming for the next fiscal year, which starts in October. So we call it FY26. And if you look at what the president proposed in the budget that he put out on at the end of May, it calls for these massive cuts of billions of dollars to science writ large. So nearly 60% to the National Science Foundation, on the order of 40% to National Institutes of Health, to NOAA, nearly 25% to NASA. And so the impacts to science writ large are just huge. And in Hawaii, right, we care about science related to climate, to health, to ecosystems, to all these things that are so important to how we live in Hawaii. And these cuts have the potential for really wreaking havoc on science and the pursuit of knowledge and how it affects human beings in Hawaii. So that's the bigger framing. How it narrows down to what we're tracking in astronomy is that cuts to federal funding will affect, if they go through, will affect astronomy on Mauna Kea, astronomy on Haleakala, research and education at the University of Hawaii Institute for Astronomy and UH Hilo. So these cuts are wide ranging, and I know we're focusing on Mokoa Keawe, but it's statewide impacts. For Keck specifically, in the president's budget request, and I keep using the term request because it is Congress that ultimately decides through their appropriations what money gets spent. And I think there's a lot of advocacy that we can do in Hawaii for all the sciences, including astronomy. So I'll get back to that. But for Keck, in the president's budget request was zeroed out funding for NASA's involvement in Keck, which is about 1/6 of our operating cost. These are funds that directly pay for our activities to put these telescopes on sky, we call it. So to open the domes and observe the universe and gain new knowledge, just the core of what we do is funded by NASA. And that's, almost 20% of our funding. So that's a huge impact if that were to go through.
It sounds like a lot is hinging on how the president's budget's going to be decided, and folks have to hope for the best, but they're anticipating the worst in this period?
Exactly. And it's important to note that they aren't entirely powerless in this period, though. Rich told us what they're doing to push back against threats to their operations.
We're involved in advocacy in Washington, D.C. We're very fortunate at Keck Observatory to have a chief scientist, John O'Mara, who is very involved in both the agencies and political advocacy. And so we do that and try to keep our local elected officials advised as well of what's happening.
I asked Rich to explain how impacts are being felt on the ground.
We're still here. We're doing great science, and there have been some minor hiccups in the current time right now. So the current fiscal year, which is FY25. So there have been some hiccups and delays in funding and things like that, but we're really concerned more about FY26 and beyond. But for the National Science Foundation, for Keck specifically, we apply for and get grants from the National Science Foundation for development of new technologies. So the telescopes are already over 30 years old, but what allows us to stay cutting edge is to update our instrumentation and technologies like adaptive optics to allow us to see more precisely and more clearly the universe. And we do that through technology development. And if National Science Foundation receives the kind of cuts that are anticipated or requested, that would have a huge impact on that future ability. And then I think what can't be discounted at all, and I think all of Hawaii is feeling this, is just this feeling of uncertainty, not just at Keck, but across all the observatories. So Keck has about 130 people. Across all the observatories on Mauna Kea, it's about 500 people. So a lot of people, a lot of jobs. And these jobs are of all different types. So, sometimes the public thinks that only astronomers work at the observatories, but there are many engineers like myself, technicians, people who work in business, HR, and finance and things like that that are needed to get an observatory to run. These are people that live in our communities with their families, and the impacts and the uncertainty, the ability to plan for your future, like what are we going to do next year? I'm thinking of buying a house. What are we going to do? All these questions get held up because of the uncertainty that exists around. So even though we've just seen sort of minor impacts to the actual dollars flowing, this looming uncertainty is impacting the morale of people and just interrupting people's lives.
Morale is definitely one of those things that's being impacted. You can pretty much feel it in the air.
Totally. And people who aren't necessarily in the field of science are also tracking these decisions against issues that matter the most to them. One thing that is surely always a topic of discussion here is Mauna Kea.
Most people know that the governance and stewardship of Mauna Kea is being changed right now. And this is an outcome of strong community sentiment in 2015, 2019 timeframes about the construction of TMT on Mauna Kea. And as a result of that, the Hawaii State Legislature and the governor created a new authority for future stewardship of Mauna Kea. And that is just going right now. And I'm the astronomy representative on that board. We're at a really critical juncture right now to where so the idea behind the authority is that representatives of the community with different expertises sit around the table and decide what is the best way to take care of the Mauna. And for the first time, there's representation from culture practitioner, lineal descendant, things that perspectives that hadn't really had a seat at the table before. And so that alone is a very monumental task to get through this transition to where the authority takes over in 2028. 5 of the 10 observatories on Mauna Kea are federally funded, and together as a hui, we fund certain shared services on the Mauna. So this uncertainty around the federal funding situation impacts uncertainty around how we will fund future activities with the authority. And that's the least of the things we would want to worry about right now, because we're really trying to figure out what's best for the Mauna from all these different perspectives and really work together to figure that out. So it's kind of unfortunate timing that this is occurring, because it's something that's really important for Hawaii to figure out how to make decisions that really support the whole in a new way with the authority that hasn't been done before. And so that's an impact that I wanted to mention of the federal funding aspect. In fact, I'm sitting here looking out the window facing Mauna Kea, and I just want to say that what a sense of responsibility, humility, respect that I have personally and my organization has for the ability to do what we do on Mauna Kea. It's a sacred space. It's the piko, the connection between earth and the heavens. And I need to remember, as a leader in astronomy, that the Mauna is so much more. It is like the best place on earth to do science, to look at the the heavens. And as the piko of the connection between Earth and the heavens, it is also the best place to view the heavens with telescopes. But it is not only that, it is so much more ecologically, spiritually, etc. And that, like I was talking earlier about the MKSOA, our job there is to figure out how to incorporate all of this into how we take care of the mauna.
I did ask Rich about the impact of the NSF's decision not to fund TMT.
Obviously, I don't speak for TMT, but I'll just relay the things that I've heard, which is the NSF in their budget request did not include TMT. And it's part of the USELT, or the United States Extremely Large Telescope Program, where there's 2 telescopes, the TMT in the Northern Hemisphere and the Giant Magellan Telescope in the Southern Hemisphere. And the NSF budget request included GMT moving on to final design, but not TMT. TMT has come out with a statement saying that they're disappointed by that fact, and they believe that their telescope is still strategically really important, but that that they are committed to trying to find other avenues for funding, given that they weren't included in the NSF budget request. But that's about all really that I know about going on with them.
I was curious to hear if there were any silver linings or learnings to what Rich was having to navigate.
Yes. So, it's incumbent upon us as, I think, just as people, but also leaders of organizations, to think about like what's happening and how to see opportunity in the face of challenge. And I'm just kind of reflecting because recently I went to go see one of the eruption cycles at Halemaumau, and I was thinking about, wow, this is amazing. Pele is both a creative force and a destructive force at the same time, and how that so relates to our situation right now. And for me, what the opportunity is to remind ourselves as an organization what is most important and what are we trying to do here, and to try to perpetuate and advance that in the face of a lot of pressure from all angles. And being able to talk about that with staff and really kind of get down to the heart of it has been, I think, really unifying and important.
I had been on Mauna Kea right before speaking to Rich in his office at the Keck headquarters. At the end of the interview, we had an optimistic vala'au about the future of science in Hawaii, one that makes space for and honors indigenous science.
Us sitting here at the table, we look at something from different perspectives. You see something from the other side, I see it from this side, but then together maybe we see the full picture better together, And if we do that as a community, as a world, the way we look at things, I think it would be much, there's so much to be gained by that.
You can appreciate how he's trying to find a way forward despite the changes being made in Washington, D.C.
Community is really where we can build resiliency in the face of these challenges.
Well, mahalo nui a'oe, Mahea. We appreciate you looking at the way the changes in D.C. are impacting people here in Hawaii. I know you've been looking into other areas of impact as well.
Right. Next week, I'll be back to take a look at the way that agriculture here in Hawaii has been impacted.
All right, we look forward to that reporting.
Later in the show, we'll be hearing from Ninamarie Bell.
Oh, I see. Adapting to surroundings has a cost. Indeed, I've been fading out into obscurity. That magic trick that used to work is killing me. It's killing me.
The Hawai'i Radio Hour is supported by the Kawananakoa Foundation.
The Kawananakoa Foundation is dedicated to preserving traditional Hawaiian culture while empowering Hawaiian people.
The foundation is the residual beneficiary of the Princess's Trust and is her lasting legacy and ultimate gift to her people.
To learn more about the Abigail Kawananakoa Foundation, please visit kawananakoafoundation.org.
Coming up later in the show, a story from Boots Lupenui told in front of a live audience here at Kahilu Theater.
A few months ago, my wife lost her wedding ring for the second time. So you should know my wife is allergic to jewelry, and not like she got to wear the hypoallergenic earrings, and like jewelry just runs away from her. I don't know if she's eating it or pawning it or what, but she cannot keep it.
We'll be back after this short break. You're listening to Hawai'i Radio Hour at Kahilu.
Welcome back to Kahilu. We are grateful you're taking time to listen to us.
If you're in the car cruising around right now, we appreciate you listening, especially if you're driving up the Hamakua coast. Hopefully you don't lose signal for the show driving through the gulches. We got a little music that we think will make your drive a little better.
Ninamarie Bell is a singer-songwriter based in Kona. Her music is best described as a soundtrack to moments under a soft ray of golden sunlight. She was raised in Hawaii and ventured off to California for a brief moment, but found her way back home to focus on building an independent career that would allow her to share soul music as a way of healing.
Here's Ninamarie Bell on stage during the Emerging Artist Series at Kahilu.
My name is Ninamarie Bell, and I'm so grateful and happy to be here with you. It's truly a dream to be able to do this, share with you all, share the music that feels like my truest form of love or something that I can offer. But this first song that I want to share started out with a conversation that I had, and the person was kindly reflecting to me that, I think, you're really sweet, but I don't really think you have much of a personality. I was like, oh, okay. So that was how the conversation got started. She's my therapist. So, I really listened up, when I was like, oh, what do you mean by that? You listen in close when your therapist says shocking things about you. And I thought I knew myself pretty well, but she went on to express that what I was bringing to her was basically a pattern of people pleasing. And maybe you're familiar with that. So anyway, I wrote this song. I wrote this song to really kind of be a reflection and also a declaration to myself that it was kind of time to stop people pleasing and maybe start figuring out, all the ways that I am myself and start living for that. And maybe stop with all the little techniques and tools that I use to try to fit and try to be enough and try to not be too big. So this song is just kind of a declaration of that. It's called Magic Trick. She said, don't you worry, honey, you're so sweet, but you have no personality. Here I thought I knew myself just fine. See, I've made a job of camouflaging parts of me for love and when it suited me. Here I learned that's just how you survive. Oh, I see. Adapting to surroundings has a cost. Indeed, I've been fading out into obscurity. That magic trick that used to work is killing me. It's killing me. His voice was hushed as he cursed me a liar. Rejection spread like wildfire. Here I want to be someone he loved.
Adapting to surroundings has a cost. Indeed, I've been fading out into obscurity. That magic trick that used to work, it's been killing me, killing me. I have a question, if you got time. Please and thank you in advance for your advice. How does one learn to put it all on the line? To love yourself and not the lie. Oh, I see. Adapting to surroundings has a cost. For me, I've been fading out into obscurity. Oh, I see. Facing my discomfort has a price. For me, no more fading out into obscurity. That magic trick that used to work. That magic trick that used to work. That magic trick that never worked. It wasn't for me.
If you'd like to watch Ninamarie Bell's full performance, head over to kahilu.tv.
The Hawai'i Radio Hour, and more importantly, the Hawai'i Storytellers Fellowship, is supported by Kamehameha Schools.
Kamehameha Schools has provided funding for the Hawai'i Storytellers Fellowship, a program that helps train, coach, and nurture Hawaii's next generation of trusted storytellers.
To learn more about Kamehameha Schools, please visit ksbe.edu. We'll be right back with a mo'olelo from Boots Lupenui. Aloha and welcome back to Kahilu.
We'd like to finish the show with something that might sound a little odd these days, a happy story from Washington, D.C.
Boots Lupenui is many, many things, including being an artist and a documentarian.
And what a storyteller. This time, Boots dons his musician papale to share a story on stage here at Kahilu.
Here's Boots Lupenui.
Aloha. I feel so bad because this story is completely true. And I would love to just come up and lie through my teeth. It's so much fun. But they asked for a true story, so here we go. I'm going to tell this story in 3 parts. There's going to be a prologue, and then there'll be the main body of the story, and then a very short epilogue, which I hate that word, epilogue. It sounds like a stick that you hit your face with when you have bad pores or something. Oh, look, my skin is all kind of, whack me with the epilogue. But it'll be short. We should be out of here in about an hour and a half. So the story is going to begin and end with my wife. She has a huge role in the story, and you'll see why. But so here's the prologue. So a few months ago, my wife lost her wedding ring for the second time. So you should know my wife is allergic to jewelry, and not like she got to wear like, you know, the hypoallergenic earrings, and like jewelry just runs away from her. I don't know if she's eating it or pawning it or what, but she cannot keep it. When we got married a few years ago, my mother-in-law gave her great-grandmother's wedding ring and said, you know, I would like you to wear this for the family. And she did for many years, and then she lost it. And then 2 years ago, my mother-in-law said, Cheryl, this is, and I should tell you, I'm going to, out of respect for my wife's privacy, I'm going to call her Cheryl. Because that's her name. But so Cheryl, her mother told her, I'm going to give you this ring. This is my mother's wedding ring, and this one is very close to me. This is one of the last things I have of my mom, and don't lose this one. So about 3 months ago, she lost that one. And she was in the bushes cutting weeds and cutting vines and invasive species and all kinds of good things. And at some point, she realized she didn't have her ring on anymore, and she was devastated. And she went back with one of her employees, and they had a metal detector, and they looked, and they didn't find it. And the next day, I went back with her with a metal detector, and we looked, and we didn't find it. And on the third day, I went back by myself, and I just talked to the ancestors, and I said, listen, if this ring is the price of us living in this beautiful place, then so be it. But if you don't need that ring, she is so brokenhearted. You guys got to give back that ring. And I never heard anything back, so we just moved on. Around the same time, I got a call from the Library of Congress, which everybody here knows how that goes. A couple of years ago, I got a grant from the Library of Congress to do some archival work, and what I did was I went searching for old and unrecorded songs of Kohala, and I found some, and I'm happy to say as of last month, that collection is online, and those songs are safe forever in the Library of Congress. So good for those families, good for all of us. So I began a relationship with the Library of Congress folks, and then a few months ago, they called me and said, we want to put together a symposium for 2 days, a Thursday and Friday in April. We'll fly you up. Several of the other grantees are coming, and you guys are going to give presentations. We're going to show your work. We're going to show your documentary that you made as well as the archival project. And one night, we're going to have a concert. Would you be interested in participating? And that's how they put it. And so I said, absolutely, I want to be in, because I'm thinking, I know some of the other grantees. I know some of the other cultures that are represented. There's the Huma people from Louisiana. There's some Lao folks who live in the Bayou country. And man, I'm going to be able to rub elbows with these other musicians and hear stuff I'd never heard. I'm going to learn some cool stuff. So yeah, I'm in, totally. So okay, we'll get the ball rolling. We'll talk to the staff. We'll get on a Zoom call next week, and we'll work out the details. Cool, but I'm in. So next week, they get on a Zoom call with me, and before anything starts, I said, listen, before you guys get started, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so could you tell me what you need from me? Do I do like one song and then get off, or 2 songs and get off? Do you want me to do a song and then stay on the stage and just help, just back everybody else up? How is this going to work? And they looked at each other, and then looking on the screen, they said, no, you don't understand. We want a whole concert of just Boots. Oh, no, I said yes already, huh? And the whole show, hour and a half. Like, this is not how I thought this was going to go at all. But so, okay, now I'm trying to be cool, because they've already started this ball rolling, and I don't want to panic them. So I said, well, can I at least bring my band? And so, yeah, we're going to pay for you guys. We're going to fly you up, take care of you. You bring as many guys as you want. Like, all right, good on. We get off the call, and like, now I got to find one band. So the first call I made was to Chad Paishan, of course, because we've played together before. And I love Chad, and he said yes, and then I found a couple other guys that I didn't even know, like Charlie Ricardo, as a recommendation from Adam Palia back there, and a bass player named Brian McCree, who's one of the best jazz bass players on the island, if not the best. So we put this band together, and we started rehearsing. There wasn't a lot of time. Everybody had commitments, so rehearsals were few and far between when we could get everybody in the same room. And to their credit, everybody said yes when I explained what I was trying to do. And what I was trying to do was not just go to D.C. and sing the songs of Kohala and tell the stories of how I found those songs, but I wanted to tell a deeper story about Hawaiian music. And that story was the second half of a story that most people know already, which is then the first, maybe in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the world discovered Hawaiian music. And especially America went crazy for Hawaiian music, and it influenced all of the major American musical forms: blues, jazz, country, folk, bluegrass. As the archivist, Kylan Reese says, if you look in any one of those family trees, there's at least one Hawaiian, and it's true. And so I wanted to play some Hawaiian music that sounded like blues and country and jazz, and I wanted to play some country and blues and folk that sounded like Hawaiian music. And I wanted those people to understand that our musics are very similar for a real reason. And that is, after America was influenced by our music and grew their own music, decades later, Americans came to Hawaii in droves. First, the military was stationed here, and then steamship travel opened up, clipper ship. Americans moved here in droves, and they brought their music, not knowing that that music was not their music, but that was our music. And the interesting thing is, when they played that music here, the Hawaiian musicians of the day here heard that and thought, yeah, I like that. I'm going to put that in my music. And they started to incorporate that music into their music, not knowing that was already their music. So in a real way, there's this reciprocal influence thing happening. And I kind of think of it as a wave that washed off our beach and then traveled across the Pacific and then washed up their beach. And then as it washed back down their beach, it collected all these different things that it didn't have before, and then it came back across the ocean to us. And as it rolled up our beach, we saw all these different things, but we still recognized that that wave is ours. And so the music that we hear today, Hawaiian music, is really a product of that, and that's fascinating to me. And I wanted them to know that story, and I wanted them to hear examples of that, because I thought, especially now in a time where everybody's so divided, I thought if we can at least start from a place of respect and recognizing that we're not all that dissimilar, maybe we can have better conversations and treat each other better. Maybe, I don't know. But it was worth a shot. Every one of the guys I told said, hey, I love that idea. I'm in. I'll do it for free. And I said, shoo. Library of Congress is paying us. And I made a point of checking, and it's not federal money. It's melon funds, so we're safe. We're actually going to get paid. So we started rehearsing, and my wife, Cheryl, who has a day job, she acted as our business manager. And while we were getting the music together, she was finding hotels and finding flights. She was scanning our passports to do enhanced TSA pre-check, because walking through the airports with our gear and our equipment that looked like bombs, we couldn't have, we didn't want to be stopped. So she did tons of work. And then we dropped it on her that, oh yeah, we will also want you to dance hula at the show at the Library of Congress. And she agreed, and she doesn't make very good decisions, clearly. So she went about learning the song, and she worked really hard to learn this song. And so she did all this work, and consequently, about a week before the show is happening and all the band is going to fly together, we're all going to fly up to D.C., she leaves a few days earlier to go to Florida to meet her mom, who's coming up to the concert. She and her mom are going to make lei for the band, because I wanted old-style, big, fat, red carnation leis, like you see in all the old 50s and 60s bands. I mean, it was good enough for them, good enough for us. Kahuana Lake Trio, I'm in. So they go and they make the lei, and when she flies to Florida, where her mom was, she hadn't told her mom that she had lost her ring yet. I know. And don't go ahead. Don't read ahead. And so as soon as she saw her mom was like, Cheryl, what happened to your ring? And the two of them started crying, and the waterworks, and a bad day, and clouds, and it was just wasn't good. But they got through it, and they made our lei, and they came to D.C. And the symposium happened. The first day went great. They loved the documentary, great. No time for resting, straight to the venue. Sound check, get in the back there. The band brought your uniform, put your clothes on, get ready to play. We get on stage. The place is packed. The place is packed, which is such an honor. The venue, the Coolidge Theater at the Hamilton Building, I think, Library of Congress, is a really old, beautiful venue, and everybody's played there, from Jelly Roll Morton to Dolly Parton to Lionel Richie, all kinds of folks, and now the Kohala Mountain Boys, our band. But it was kind of overwhelming. We walked out, and this place was packed, and we got on stage, and we started playing, and they loved it. And I'm telling stories, and they're enjoying the stories. And at some point, and I talked to Chad, and I know he felt the same way. At some point, I realized that it wasn't just us four on stage. I could feel all the ancestors crowding on that stage. It was beautiful to know that we weren't by ourselves, And it went much better than I would have expected. So we get all the way through the concert, and I'm telling stories of the songs that we're playing. At some point, I play like a Sam Cooke song, and I explain to the people that this is a song by a very famous Hawaiian artist, Sam Cooke. And they all look at me, and I say, well, originally his name was Sam Kukahiko, but the record company, they couldn't say the name. They just cut it, and so now we know him as Sam Cooke. And they was all right with that, and we sang the song. I told the band as we were preparing for this, I said, we're going to do the song Come On Over by Hui Ohana. They all, hey, Hui Ohana, this is awesome. This is a classic. I said, yeah, but they didn't write it. It was written by the Bee Gees. And they're like, what? And all three guys wanted to fight with me. That's a Hawaiian song no matter what you say. Like it was written by the Bee Gees. But be glad, because turns out the Bee Gees, BG doesn't stand for Brothers Gibb. Turns out they're Hawaiian too. Is Brown Guys is the name of the band. That's all Hawaiian. So Hawaiians every place. So we get to the concert. We get to the very end of the concert, and we say our thank yous. We get off stage. We start to get off stage, and we hear everybody yelling, Hanaho, encore. Everybody's wants to. Thankfully, we had one more song in our pocket, because I was hoping that would happen. But so we get back on the stage, and we start to set up the song. And sitting right here, right in front of me, in the first row, this whole time was this big Hawaiian guy, crazy Willie K kind of hair, this big utubangi hair. That's what we call it, utubangi. I don't know what is that. Huge white beard, and he just look on his face like he bites somebody. He's leaning in, and he's shooting pictures, and he's leaning in, looking at me the whole time. And whatever I say, he's like, yeah, that's right, bro. Choo! He's the big fella. And so as we start to set up the song, I say the song we're about to play is by the most famous Hawaiian artist of all time. And immediately this guy goes, Gabby Pahinui. Whoo! And I said, no, more famous than Gabby. He looks at me like, what you said? I said, Willie Nelson. So he looking at me, I said, Willie Nelson, bro. Listen, I've heard a couple versions of this story, but I know it's true. Some people say his original name was Mauna Willie Nelson. I heard also that his name was Willie Nalawai, but the record company, they cannot say the names. So boom, it is Willie Nelson now. You cannot tell me that guy not Hawaiian. He spent his whole life as an outlaw, long white beard, smoked pakalolo all the time. That is a Hawaiian right there. So we sang Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and they loved it. That was our second standing ovation, right? 2 standing ovations. So we're beyond happy at this point. We all get up to leave, and I turn to the mic and I say, actually, I lied. I have one more thing. And I realized early on that the songs we were playing, they all kind of had a thing that kind of kept them glued together, and the sound of the band, the 4-piece. And I didn't want people to go home thinking, okay, I know what these Hawaiians can do. I get it. I wanted to throw them a curve and say, well, you thought you knew what we could do, but here's something else that you need to consider now. And so I had told the bass player, Mr. Great Jazz Bassist himself, I said, Brian, I want to do a jazz classic. I want to do a standard. But I want to do it with just you playing the bass and then me just singing and nothing else. No other instruments, no other voices. That's going to be the arrangement. Can we do it? And he's like, well, let's try it. And so I picked a song called For All We Know. It's an old standard. A lot of us know the Donny Hathaway version. It was the first song my wife and I danced to at our wedding. So it was our song. And she had done so much work, and she was right there in the audience with her family. And so I sang the song with the bass player. For all we know, we may never meet again. Before you go, make this moment sweet again. We won't say goodnight until the last minute. I'll hold out my hand, and my heart will be in it. And on like that. She loved it. 3rd standing ovation. Here comes my wife flying on stage, bawling her eyes out, big hug and a kiss. I'm like, whoa, I'm working over here. This is inappropriate. This is some human relations stuff or human resources kind of thing. This is not okay. Anyway, the rest of the night goes fantastic. We get off stage. Everybody is super happy. The band is beyond, thrilled with what went on. Next morning, the second half of the conference happens. the symposium. I'm on the panel. I give my presentation. Everybody's happy. Everybody likes things. We're all good. We're flying out Saturday morning. Now, here is the epilogue to this story, and this is why I agreed to tell this story, because otherwise it's just me bragging about some awesome opportunity that we had. That's not enough. So Saturday morning, we get up early, about 3:30. We get ready to leave. The whole band, we all meet down the lobby. We Uber to the airport in D.C. We get all the way through the airport in D.C. We get on our flight. We get all the way to Chicago, where we have a layover at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. There's nobody in the gate when we get there at O'Hare. And so I still remember we were at United B2. That was the gate. And we get in there. There's nobody. You know how the gates are. There are rows of chairs and the windows where you can see the planes behind you. And there's a row of chairs right here against the window. And that's where we were sitting. So I'm sitting here. Cheryl is sitting here. Chad is sitting right here. And then Brian, the bass player, is sitting here. And at some point, Chad stands up and he's stretching his legs and he's talking to me. And he said, you know what, bro, you did good. You honored our ancestors. And they must be real happy with you today. And then he turned to Cheryl and he said, Cheryl, we know all the work that you did to get us here. We know what you put into this. Your ancestors must be real proud of you today. And out of the corner of my eye, I see my wife bend down underneath her seat, between her feet, and pick something up. And then she stands up, and I start to turn to her, and she says, look. And she holds this thing up, and it's a wedding ring. It's a diamond ring. I'm like, oh, my God, baby, you better find somebody from United Airlines because somebody lost their ring just like you did, and we don't want them to freak out. Just let them know that we have the ring. And she said, you don't understand. This is my ring. I said, baby, I'm sorry. I know you're upset, but now you smoke and pupule. That's not your ring. That can't be your ring. It's not sitting here at gate B2 at O'Hare. And she said, no, and she held it close to me, and she's crying out, and she said, look, and it's her grandmother's wedding ring. It's her ring. It's her, I don't know. So as Hawaiians, we live with one foot on this side in the here and the other foot in the hereafter. And for us, the ancestors are present in a real way. And I looked at Chad, and he was saying out loud this thing I was thinking, which was he said, well, see, I told you the ancestors was happy with you. And so I don't know what everybody in this room believes. I don't know if you think some ghost hand put that ring underneath her seat. If you think there's some Rube Goldberg machine idea of it must have been in a wash and it fell in a pocket and it got stuck in a buttonhole and somehow it ended up in this perfect spot. But whatever the delivery system is, I'm saying that is the ancestors. And I don't care what anybody else says. That's the ancestors. So we had to travel thousands of miles just for this reminder that the ancestors are watching, that in a real way, our lives are not just ours. And you need to be thinking about all the things you do, be real intentional about being true to who you are, and honoring your ancestors, the lahui, and just doing good works in general if you can. And I was proud to witness that crazy miracle. And since we've been back, my wife is so annoyed with me because I ask her like 3 times a day, you still get your ring? I say, yes, I got my ring. But it was worth it. And my favorite part of that whole story is that now every time I think about it, I know that someplace in D.C., that gigantic Hawaiian man is telling somebody, bro, I bet you never know, Willie Nelson was Hawaiian, bro. Anyway, my name is Boots Lupenui. I'm of Kohala and Waimea, and mahalo. I appreciate your time.
Boots Lupenui was one of our storytellers here at Kahilu, and we plan on hearing more stories from our island home recorded on the stage in front of a live audience.
And don't forget, you can watch the video of Boots telling his story on our Instagram and YouTube channels.
Support for the Ike Kupuna and Mo'olelo portions of Hawai'i Radio Hour comes from Kate Bell and Tom Blackburn of the Deviants from the Norm.
Without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible.
We'll return in just a moment.
Be sure to follow us on social media at Hawai'i Radio Hour. Look for us on Instagram and YouTube.
And if you'd like to re-listen to the show, you can also find us by searching for Hawai'i Radio Hour on Spotify and other podcast outlets. Mahalo for listening. We want to make sure we thank everyone who helped make this show possible, from Rich Matsuda, Ninamarie Bell, and Boots Lupenui for getting in front of the microphone. Behind the scenes, of course, we also want to thank all the amazing people here at Kahilu.
And a very special mahalo to our Hawaii Storytellers Fellows, Jillian Santiago, Mahealani Dupont, and Tati Dunauer for their help with this week's show. We appreciate Mahea's reporting and Jillian's produced this week's show.
If you're away from the islands but don't want to miss out on the performances at Kahilu, you can find all of them on Kahilu TV. You can also stream Ninamarie Bell's full show. Just head to kahilu.tv.
Here on the show, we say e ho'olohe I ko kako moku. Listen to our island home. So as we leave you, we're going to be listening to the sounds of our island home. Here's the sounds of first light in the Hamakua Forest Reserve.
E ho'olohe I ko kako moku.
Ahui ho and aloha.